So today is about these issues that are popping up, that everyone's talking about, issues that we can say are Gen Z issues. A lot of the things that are happening in Gen Z. Some of them are, these new types of videos that are popping up, which are these rants. These mostly young people, some old. They're doing like a rant about life. They're just talking about, and it's quite a serious. Some of the things that they're talking about are quite serious. The other issues are like the lack of wanting to work, to have a job or even look for a job or a career, and also this transgender, gender identity. So I'm going to talk about all these things, and I'm going to give it from a perspective and advice, to maybe give someone direction, to give like a Gen Z coming from a Gen X. So I'm towards the end of Gen X. I was probably the last year of Gen X, and so Gen X, and then Millennial. I went to school with Millennials just because of where I was born, the month and things like that. So I could have either been like the youngest kid in the class or the oldest kid in the class, and I ended up being the oldest kid in the class. So I went to school with Millennials. So the first one is about these rants about life. Like, people just had enough of life. I think the main cause is people are, this generation, everyone in this generation, not just Gen Z, everyone is overstimulated but undersatisfied. So it's a bit like, people say we're the most overfed but undernourished. So we have a lot of calories and sugars and stuff, but we're not nourished. And it's the same thing. I think we're overstimulated but undersatisfied, and that's why a lot of these people are feeling this way. And typically over history and time and all the previous generations, thousands and thousands of years ago, stimulation came with satisfaction. It came with a reward. That reward sometimes was immediate, like an immediate prize. Sometimes it was secondary, like exercise is a secondary satisfaction. So when you go out and you exercise and you come back and you're tired and your muscles are sore, you're satisfied, you're stimulated when you're out running around, and now when you finish you're satisfied. But it's secondary because you've ran around, you've gone stronger, you've done the micro tears, and your muscles are going to get bigger, so that when you need them, so you have that satisfaction. When you need them, you can get something. When you need to hunt, when you need to do a big job, you're strong, you can do it, you get paid. So even that's a secondary satisfaction. Gaining skills as well, not just strength, but skills. Doing something that makes you gain a skill gives you the stimulation and the satisfaction that you've gained a skill. But being stimulated by something that doesn't lead to growth means that you're not satisfied. You're stimulated but you're not satisfied, and it leaves you feeling empty because you didn't gain anything. You can open the internet and you can have 100 on your screen, 100 new women who you've never seen before who are in the nude. Our body doesn't know that it's just on a screen and it's not real. That's why our body is stimulated by it. And our body is not used to that level of stimulation of 100 nude women. Our body is not used to that. It's overstimulation. But there's a lot of stimulation, but there's no satisfaction in it. Satisfaction comes from, you have a partner and you have characteristics and qualities of trust. You have a trust between the person, you have care, you have sharing, you share belongings, you love, and security. See, as well as the physical stimulation. So that environment that I'm talking about, where it's love and care and trust, that's the environment that children can be brought up in. You can have children and they can be brought up in that love, care, sharing, security, trust. And so then when there's the physical stimulation causes offspring to be born, so you get satisfied. So the physical part is one part of the whole package, but we're getting a massive dose of the physical part, with our eyes, but nothing else. And that's why people are feeling empty. They're overstimulated but undersatisfied. They're not satisfied. Back in previous generations, it was a lot harder to get this physical stimulation. Now it's so easy. You just open your laptop while you're in bed and you got access to like a billion, nude women. And that's why you see these people who are going on a rant. Like they're saying they're bored. They're saying there's nothing in them for life. They've got anxiety. They don't have a reason to be living. There's nothing that drives them because they're overstimulated, but they're not satisfied. They're empty. And that's why they rant about life. They talk about this emptiness. Also, the second reason why young people are doing this rant, and I can help you with from a Gen X, my experience, there's a second reason, specifically the young people, is that it's actually normal. It's normal to feel anxiety when you're at that age. All generations have that. One reason is the schooling system. So it's a big shock on your body to be in the schooling system, where essentially in the schooling system you can get away with doing nothing. You can get away with doing near to nothing. And then when you need to go to work, you don't have that privilege. You need to work. And that is a big shock. The schooling system has I think not done its job. And that's why it's a big shock, and that's why there's a lot of anxiety. And also another reason is that you haven't found your feet in your 20s, in your early 20s. You're not going to get, these kids, they're talking about getting their break. When am I going to get my break? When am I going to find my feet? But it's normal to not find your feet. You're not going to find your feet in weeks or months or years. Maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. Maybe it's not until your 30s where you actually find your feet. Maybe there's times where you think you find your feet, but then something happens and blows you off course, and you gotta restart. That's life. That's life. That's a lot of life in your 20s. That happens a lot. People don't find their feet usually. A lot of people don't. They just go through these frustrations. They go through these failures. They go through these times where there's seasons where it feels like they're not getting anywhere. It's just like a dead end. This is normal though. This happens in all generations, not just this current generation. But I believe that, if you're true and legitimate and you keep working at it, you keep working no matter what the season is, you will find your feet. You will get satisfaction. You'll get to a point where you're in the right spot. Second point is, a lot of people are saying that Gen Z, including themselves, self-admission, that they don't want to work. They don't want to get jobs. They don't want to have careers. They don't want to get like a university or college degree so they can become a high status. They don't want that. They don't want to work. Is what a lot of people are saying. But apart from that, just as a side note, even in the school age, before they go to work, there's this new thing that's happening where kids, teenagers, they don't want to go to school. We have like this thing that's happening. I don't know if it's happening all over the world, but it's been talked about in Australia, and it's called school refusal. It's where students, they don't want to go to school. Like they can't. It's very difficult for them to go to school, and they call it school refusal, and it's happening a lot. But I believe that this is happening is because the world we live in accommodates for schooling without going to school. School is being refused because there's an option. Like there's an option for it. This opened up during COVID. Back in my day, there was a particular time where I really didn't want to go to school. I was having a lot of issues. I really didn't want to go, but I had no option. I had to go. There was no other option like the option that's afforded now. I felt stressed. I didn't want to go because I felt stressed by my surroundings. I couldn't handle the people, the evils that were happening, the violence. Just, I couldn't handle, in school you're forced to be around people who, whose behaviors are quite sickening. After school, you have the freedom to choose who you want to be around with, but in school, and so I didn't want to go. There was a certain time where I didn't want to go to school, but I had to go to school, and it was sickening for me. It was making me physically sick from the stress. I enjoyed most of school. It was just that one time, maybe like that 1 year period. And then there was just a couple of years after that where things sort of slowly started to settle down, and then I finished high school after that. But the difference is, Gen Z might still have those stresses that I was having, but they've got the option to not go to school because they can do school from home. The technology accommodates for that, and I probably would have done that if the technology was available back in my time. So the point is, why not fix the problem that is making people not want to be in that environment, rather than just have an option for them to avoid it? Why don't we try and fix the problem? Don't make people be in an environment that they hate. Make an environment that people like, an environment where the characteristics uphold, humanity, love and compassion for fellow man. But this problem of lack of humanity and lack of love and lack of compassion and people hating their environment, this didn't break down in Gen Z. This broke down a long time before that. It broke down, I think, in the start of Western ideologies. People take away the fear of God. They take away the fear of God. That is a very big thing you're taking away. The fear of doing something to an eternal being, because you tell people that there's no eternal beings. Everything is temporary. All people are temporary. So do whatever you want. But when you have the fear of God, when you have the fear of what you're doing something to an eternal being, not a temporary being, then you might have that fear and have that respect for humanity, which is lost, which is still found in maybe the non-Western cultures, their culture and their respect for humanity. But I think in the West, that respect for humanity is gone, because the fear of the eternal being is not there. The fear of God is not there. The fear of, I could use my power to inflict suffering now, but later on the tables might turn on me. There's no fear of that. It's just, I got the power now, I'm gonna do it. And that's why people are in this environment that they hate. They can't stand. It's sickening. The other reason I think people are refusing to work is they're saying that buying a house is out of reach. So what's the point? Just as a side note, I think buying a house is kind of a bit of a rort. It's not a rort, but there's a lot of rorts in it. The banks tell you that you've got a lot of equity, you're cashed up when you own a house, but in less than 1 year they triple the interest rates. And house prices, they don't stay up as well. They go up and down. And so I guess owning is a little bit better than renting. But to not want to work because house prices, housing is expensive for everyone. People who own and people who rent. It's just the time, and it's going to go up and down, and it changes. I believe it's going to change. It's gone up and down a lot of times. It's just a small thing. But the main point is that, house pricing shouldn't have a bearing on whether you want to work or whether you want a career. My main driver for wanting to work was not so that I can have a house. That was a secondary, a wish list down, a secondary wish list. It should be driven by the desire to want to do something, or at least work towards doing something that you can tolerate. But where this sort of all comes undone is because the parents of Gen Z are discouraging their children, Gen Z children, to work below a certain status. And they're the same people who complain when they're sitting 20 minutes in a fast food store not being served because there's no staff shortage, or why there's a 6 months back order on a simple item. Before I started working in a high status job, I worked a lot of low status jobs, and I believe that experience of working those low status jobs has given me an edge over my current co-workers who've never had their hands dirty, so to speak. On the other hand, like, to sort of contradict or in contrary to my last point, maybe Gen Z don't want to work because they see the writing on the wall. They see that low status jobs are going to be replaced by AI, robotics, which actually I believe is a good thing, because AI, robotics, it increases productivity, and it's productivity that makes you rich, that makes you wealthy, which means you can spend more time on doing what you want to do rather than what you have to do. And maybe that's why, like, maybe Gen Z can sense that, they can see it coming, and that's another reason why maybe they just don't want to work. The last point seems, which is like this rising trend with Gen Z, is this whole gender identity. From a Gen X, from my generation, and from a lot of other generations, like, there was always gay people, there was always homosexuals, there was always trans or cross-dressing. That stuff already always existed, but it was very like niche. Like, it was you had to go to a certain area, certain red light districts or blue light districts. Like, they were hidden away, very very minority. The strange thing, it's not actual sexuality, it's not like the actual gay relationships is either the same, is not changing, or actually declining. But what's increasing is the transgender and the gender identity. The funny thing about this is not the phenomena itself, but it's the reasons why. It's like people are saying, it's like there are these conspiracy theories where the algorithms of social media are feeding and are creating, like, there's this higher level. It's not just about, like, if you think the whole transgender movement, if you think transgender is bizarre, I think the reasoning that people are talking about is more bizarre. And because humans are very influential, humans can be influenced, that is. You can make humans do the most bizarre things. You just keep talking about it and make it sound like normal, and they'll start doing it. But I believe that, like, this transgender movement is just another counter-culture movement. This already always existed. It's existed in the past. The hippie movement. I believe this is happening, that gender identity and transgender is because it's growing, because it's a movement and people want to make a point. There is something in the political or cultural, there's something in the political or cultural system that we're living in that's broken, and this movement is trying to point out what's broken. This isn't about someone's gender that Mother Nature didn't quite get right, or this isn't about an expression of that is of someone who's maybe being violated or some sort of trauma. This is like a counterculture cultural statement, and this is why it's growing. And a lot of people are talking about this, and a lot of people are studying this phenomena. And I believe the secrets and the motives behind this phenomena will be exposed at some time or another. Anyway, I think overall, the young generation, the Gen Z, is not the bad picture that people are painting. I think Gen Z, from just generalizing, are quite intelligent compared to previous. They're a lot more informed. They've got a lot more information at hand than the previous generations. A lot of previous generations were quite ignorant. There was a lot of ignorant things that were said It's hard to compare and it's hard to remember what previous generations did when they were young, but it was a lot more ignorant than what there is now. Although I think the downside of this current generation is a lot of people suffer from anxiety due to social isolation, due to the screen time, which is probably the biggest thing that I think should be addressed. Also, just getting out, being more physical, being more connected to nature, being more connected to humanity. I think that's all really Gen Z need for better quality of life. So anyway, that's all I've got. If you like my content, I've got a whole playlist. I've got two playlists. One's for motorcycles, and the other is for like these humanity and spirituality issues. So if you like my video in general, please hit the like button, make a comment. If you like my content in general, subscribe. And if you are riding a motorcycle, take it easy and ride safe.